The sun shone brightly through the kitchen windows as I bustled about, preparing a hearty Sunday lunch for my family. The aroma of roasted chicken and freshly baked bread filled the air, and I couldn't help but smile. These moments of togetherness meant the world to me. As I set the table, my daughter Hannah walked in, her eyes red and puffy. My heart sank. "Mom, I don't know how to say this, but Peter, he's been having an affair for a long time. I found out last night." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I rushed to her side, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down her face as she clung to me, her body shaking with sobs. The rest of the family trickled in, their chatter dying down as they sensed the somber atmosphere. "What's going on?" my son Michael asked, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath. "Everyone, please sit down. We need to have a family discussion." As they gathered around the table, I held Hannah's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Hannah has just found out that Peter has been unfaithful to her for quite some time." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. My husband, David, slammed his fist on the table. "That bastard! How could he do this to our little girl?" Hannah's lower lip trembled. "I don't know what to do, Mom. I feel so lost." I looked her straight in the eye, my voice firm. "You listen to me, Hannah. You are not alone in this. We are here for you every step of the way. We will get through this together, as a family." Nods of agreement and words of support echoed around the table. Michael wrapped an arm around his sister's shoulders. "We've got your back, sis. Always." As the initial shock subsided, we began to discuss the next steps. I couldn't help but think back to my own troubled marriage with Hannah's father, Richard. The countless arguments, the cold shoulders, and the constant meddling from his mother, Agnes. It had been a difficult time, but I had emerged stronger, more resilient. I knew I had to be that pillar of strength for Hannah now. She needed me more than ever, and I was determined to guide her through this storm. "First things first," I said, my voice steady. "We need to make sure you and the children are safe, Hannah. If Peter's behavior escalates, we'll take legal action." Hannah nodded, wiping away her tears. "I never thought it would come to this, Mom. I always believed we could work through anything." I squeezed her hand again. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people change. And not always for the better. But you have to remember, this is not your fault. You deserve so much better than this." As the conversation continued, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Anger towards Peter for betraying my daughter, sadness for the pain she was going through, but also a fierce determination to protect her, to help her navigate this difficult chapter in her life. I glanced around the table, taking in the faces of my loved ones. This was what family was all about, being there for each other through the good times and the bad. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that we would weather this storm together. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the kitchen, I hugged Hannah tightly. "We'll take this one day at a time, sweetheart. You're not alone. You have all of us, and we will never let you fall." With those words, I silently vowed to be Hannah's rock, her guiding light through the darkness. Because that's what mothers do. We love, we protect, and we fight for our children, no matter what life throws our way. As I sat with Hannah in her living room, the weight of her revelation hung heavy in the air. My mind drifted back to my own troubled marriage with Richard, and the struggles I faced with his mother, Agnes. "I remember how Agnes treated me," I said softly, taking Hannah's hand in mine. "She never thought I was good enough, Hannah. Agnes always picked Richard's side, no matter how much I tried. You're not going through this alone." Hannah's eyes welled up with tears. "I just don't understand, Mom. How could Peter do this to me, to our family?" I sighed, the memories of my own pain resurfacing. "Sometimes people change, sweetheart, and not always for the better, but you have to remember, this is not your fault. You deserve so much better than this." Just then the front door opened and Peter walked in, his face etched with annoyance. "What's going on here?" he demanded, eyeing me suspiciously. Hannah stood up, her voice trembling. "Peter, we need to talk about your affair." Peter's eyes widened and he scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about, Hannah. You're being ridiculous." I couldn't hold back any longer. "Don't you dare lie to her, Peter. She knows the truth, and so do I." Peter's face reddened with anger. "This is none of your business, Nora. Stay out of it." I stood my ground, my voice firm. "It became my business the moment you broke my daughter's heart. How could you do this to her, to your children? Peter rolled his eyes. Oh, please, spare me the lecture. You have no idea what goes on in our marriage. Hannah's voice cut through the tension. Enough, Peter. I can't do this anymore. I want you to leave. Peter's jaw dropped. You can't be serious, Hannah. You're overreacting. I placed a supportive hand on Hannah's shoulder. She's not overreacting, Peter. She's standing up for herself, for what's right. As Peter stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, Hannah collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I don't know what to do, Mom. I'm so scared. I held her tightly, my heart breaking for my daughter. I know, sweetheart, but you're not alone. We'll get through this together, I promise. The next day, I accompanied Hannah to her in-laws' house to break the news to Peter's mother, Elaine. As we sat in their pristine living room, Elaine's cold eyes bore into us. What's this all about? She asked, her voice dripping with disdain. Hannah took a deep breath. Elaine, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but Peter has been having an affair. Elaine's eyes narrowed. And you believe this nonsense, Hannah? Really? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's not nonsense, Elaine. Peter admitted it himself. Elaine scoffed. Well, if it's true, then you must have done something to drive him away, Hannah. A man doesn't just cheat on his wife for no reason. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, and I felt a surge of anger course through me. How dare you blame Hannah for this, Elaine? Your son is the one who broke his vows, who betrayed his family. Elaine stood up, her voice rising. I will not sit here and listen to you accuse my son of such things. If your daughter couldn't keep her husband satisfied, that's her problem, not mine. As we left Elaine's house, I couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu. The way she had spoken to Hannah, the blame she had placed on her, it was all too familiar. It was the same way Agnes had treated me during my marriage to Richard. I turned to Hannah, my resolve hardening. We're not going to let them break you, sweetheart. You're stronger than they think. We'll find a way through this, together. As we drove home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in my daughter. She was facing her darkest hour with grace and strength, just as I had all those years ago. And I knew, without a doubt, that we would weather this storm, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. Weeks passed, and the situation only seemed to worsen. Peter had started openly dating his lover, Kate, a younger coworker, humiliating Hannah and further straining their marriage. I watched helplessly as my daughter's once vibrant spirit slowly diminished, replaced by a constant cloud of sadness and despair. One afternoon, I decided to visit Hannah, hoping to offer some comfort and support. As I walked into her house, I was greeted by the sound of raised voices coming from the living room. I cautiously made my way towards the commotion, only to find Hannah and Elaine engaged in a heated argument. You've failed as a wife, Hannah. Peter deserves better, Elaine cruelly told her, her words dripping with venom. Hannah's eyes welled up with tears, and I felt a surge of anger course through my veins. I stepped forward, placing a protective arm around my daughter's shoulders. How dare you speak to her like that, Elaine? I said, my voice trembling with rage. Can't you see how much she's hurting? Elaine scoffed, her eyes narrowing. Oh, please, Nora. Don't act like you're some saint. You couldn't keep your own husband happy, and now look at your daughter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? I felt as if I had been slapped. The painful memories of my own failed marriage came rushing back, threatening to overwhelm me. But I refused to let Elaine see me crumble. I had to be strong for Hannah's sake. You're wrong, Elaine, I said, my voice steady. Hannah is not to blame for Peter's actions. He made the choice to betray his family, and he alone bears that responsibility. Elaine rolled her eyes. Keep telling yourself that, Nora. But the truth is, if Hannah had been a better wife, none of this would have happened. With that, she stormed out of the house, leaving Hannah and me in stunned silence. I turned to my daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace as she sobbed against my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I feel like such a failure. I pulled back, cupping her face in my hands. Listen to me, Hannah. You are not a failure. You are a strong, beautiful woman who deserves so much better than this. We're going to get through this together, I promise. As the days turned into weeks, I watched as Peter continued to flaunt his affair, parading Kate around town like some sort of trophy. Elaine, ever the enabler, stood by his side, defending his actions and blaming Hannah for the breakdown of their marriage. I felt my resolve harden with each passing day. I couldn't stand by and watch my daughter suffer any longer. I had to do something, anything, to help her break free from this toxic situation. One evening, as I sat with Hannah in her living room, I broached the subject of separation. "Hannah, sweetheart, I know this is difficult, but have you considered leaving Peter? You don't have to continue living like this." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I've thought about it, Mom, but I'm so scared. What about the children? What will people think?" I took her hand in mine, my voice firm. "The only thing that matters is your happiness and well-being, Hannah. You have to do what's best for you and the kids, and as for what people think, to hell with them. You have nothing to be ashamed of." Hannah nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "You're right, Mom. I can't keep living like this. I need to be strong, for myself and for Emily and Jason." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "That's my girl. We're going to get through this, Hannah. You're stronger than you think. We'll find a way." As I left Hannah's house that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing on the horizon. But I knew without a doubt that we would weather it together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. My daughter's happiness and freedom were worth fighting for, and I was ready to do whatever it took to help her reclaim her life. In the weeks that followed, I watched as Hannah slowly began to push back against Peter and Elaine's toxic influence. Encouraged by my unwavering support, she started to stand up for herself, refusing to be a victim any longer. One afternoon, as we sat in my kitchen sipping tea, Hannah confided in me about her plan to gather evidence of Peter's infidelity. "I need to protect Emily and Jason, Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "If we do end up separating, I want to make sure I have proof of Peter's affair to ensure the kids stay with me." I nodded, my heart swelling with pride at my daughter's strength and determination. "You're doing the right thing, Hannah. You don't have to continue living like this. We're stronger than they think. We will find a way." Just then, the doorbell rang. I excused myself and went to answer it, surprised to find my sister Diane standing on the other side. "Diane, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in." As we settled back in the kitchen, Diane's eyes fell on Hannah, and she immediately sensed that something was amiss. "What's going on, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Hannah took a deep breath and began to recount the events of the past few months, from Peter's affair to Elaine's cruel treatment. As she spoke, I could see the anger and empathy building in Diane's eyes. "Oh, Hannah," she said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. But you know what? You're not alone. I've been there too." Hannah's eyes widened. "You have?" Diane nodded, a sad smile on her face. "Years ago, my ex-husband cheated on me. It was the most painful experience of my life. But you know what I learned? That I was stronger than I ever thought possible. And so are you, Hannah." As Diane shared her own story of betrayal and resilience, I could see the glimmer of hope returning to Hannah's eyes. She had always looked up to Diane as a mother figure, and hearing that she had overcome a similar situation seemed to give her the strength she needed to keep fighting. Over the next few days, Hannah and I worked together to gather evidence of Peter's affair. We compiled text messages, emails, and even hired a private investigator to capture photos of Peter and Kate together. It was a difficult and emotionally draining process, but we knew it was necessary to protect Hannah and the children. As we sat in my living room, sorting through the evidence, Hannah suddenly broke down in tears. "I can't believe this is happening, Mom," she sobbed. "I never thought I'd be in this position, fighting for my marriage, my family." I pulled her into a tight embrace, stroking her hair as she cried. "I know, sweetheart, it's not fair, but you're doing the right thing. You're standing up for yourself, for your happiness, and that takes an incredible amount of courage." Hannah pulled back, wiping her tears. "But what about Emily and Jason? They need their father. Am I being selfish, putting my own happiness above their needs?" I shook my head, my voice firm. "Absolutely not, Hannah. Your children need a mother who is happy, healthy, and respected. They need to see you standing up for yourself, showing them that it's never okay to accept abuse or infidelity. You're setting an example for them, one of strength and self-worth." As the days turned into weeks, I watched as Hannah continued to gather her strength, preparing herself for the battle ahead. She knew that confronting Peter and Elaine would not be easy, but she was determined to reclaim her life, to build a better future for herself and her children. And through it all, I was there by her side, along with Diane, offering our unwavering support and love. We were a team, a united front against the darkness that threatened to tear our family apart. And together, we would find a way to overcome, to emerge stronger than ever before. The day I received a frantic call from Hannah, I knew something was terribly wrong. Her voice was shaking, and I could hear the tears in her words as she spoke. "Mom, I need you to come over right away. It's Peter. He's gone too far this time." I didn't hesitate for a moment. I grabbed my keys and rushed to Hannah's house, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. "What happened, sweetheart?" I asked, taking a seat beside her. Hannah took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I found out that Peter is planning to move Kate into our home. He wants her to live with us, to be a part of our family." I felt a surge of anger course through my veins. How could Peter be so cruel, so selfish, to not only betray his wife, but to flaunt his affair in front of his children, in the home they shared as a family? I confronted him about it, Hannah continued, her voice growing stronger. I told him that if he wants to be with Kate, he can have her, but he will not turn our home into some playground for his affair. I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "Good for you, Hannah. You did the right thing, standing up for yourself and your children." But even as I spoke those words, I could see the fear in Hannah's eyes. She knew that this confrontation was only the beginning, that Peter and Elaine would not take her defiance lying down. And she was right. In the days that followed, Peter's backlash was fierce. He raged at Hannah, calling her unstable, unfit to be a mother. He threatened to take the children away from her, to paint her as a villain in the eyes of the court. Elaine, ever the manipulator, only fueled the flames. She whispered poisonous words in Peter's ear, telling him that Hannah was trying to destroy their family, that she was a danger to their children. I watched as Hannah struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy for Emily and Jason, even as the tension in the house reached a boiling point. She put on a brave face for them, reading them bedtime stories and helping them with their homework, all while Peter and Elaine's cruelty loomed over her like a dark cloud. But through it all, Hannah remained strong. She leaned on me and Diane for support, finding solace in our unwavering love and encouragement. And slowly but surely, I could see a change in her, a newfound resilience and determination that refused to be broken. One evening, as we sat together in my living room, Hannah turned to me with a fire in her eyes. "I want a separation, Mom. I can't keep living like this in a house filled with so much hatred and betrayal." I took her hand in mine, squeezing it tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Hannah. You're doing the right thing for yourself and for your children." Hannah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I know it won't be easy, Mom. Peter and Elaine will fight me every step of the way, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready to take my life back, to build a better future for myself and my kids." As I looked at my daughter, I saw a strength in her that I had never seen before. She had been through so much, endured so much pain and heartache, but she had emerged from it all with a fierce determination to reclaim her happiness. And I knew in that moment that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how hard Peter and Elaine tried to break her, Hannah would never give up. She would keep fighting, keep pushing forward, until she had built the life she deserved, a life filled with love, respect, and the unbreakable bonds of family. As the weeks turned into months, Diane, Hannah, and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence of Peter's infidelity and expose his true nature to the world. We knew that the only way to truly break free from his manipulation and cruelty was to reveal the truth, to show everyone the man he really was behind closed doors. It wasn't easy. Peter was clever, always careful to cover his tracks and maintain his public image as a devoted husband and father. But we were determined, driven by a fierce desire to protect Hannah and her children from any further harm. We started by hiring a private investigator, someone who could discreetly follow Peter and Kate and capture their indiscretions on camera. It was a risky move, but one we knew was necessary to build a strong case against him. As the evidence began to mount, I could see a change in Hannah. She walked with her head held high, a newfound confidence in her step. She was no longer the broken, defeated woman she had been just months before, but a fierce warrior, ready to fight for her freedom and her family. One evening, as we sat together in Diane's living room, poring over the latest batch of photos and videos, I turned to Hannah with a determined look in my eye. It's time everyone sees Peter for who he really is. He can't keep hiding behind his lies. Hannah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. I'm ready, Mom. Let's do this. The next day, we put our plan into action. We sent the evidence to Peter's employer, his colleagues, and even his friends and family. We posted it on social media, making sure that everyone in his circle saw the truth about the man they thought they knew. The response was immediate and explosive. Peter's reputation crumbled overnight as the community reeled from the shock of his betrayal. His employer fired him on the spot, disgusted by his behavior and the damage it had caused to their company's image. Elaine, too, felt the backlash of her son's actions. Her social circle began to shun her, appalled by her unwavering support of Peter's reprehensible behavior. She was left isolated and alone, forced to confront the consequences of her own manipulation and cruelty. But perhaps the most surprising development was Kate's reaction. When the evidence of her affair with Peter went public, she panicked, fearing the damage it would cause to her own reputation. In a moment of self-preservation, she abandoned Peter, leaving him to face the fallout alone. I watched as Peter's world crumbled around him as he lost his job, his lover, and his standing in the community. A part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, seeing him finally face the consequences of his actions. But mostly, I just felt relief. Relief that Hannah was finally free from his grip, that she could start to rebuild her life without fear or manipulation. As the dust began to settle, I sat with Hannah in her living room, holding her hand tightly in mine. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You did it. You broke free. Hannah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom, without you and Diane. You gave me the strength to keep fighting, even when I thought I had nothing left. I pulled her into a tight embrace, my own tears falling freely. That's what family is for, Hannah. We lift each other up. We fight for each other, no matter what. As we sat there, holding each other close, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, wounds to heal, and trust to rebuild. But I also knew that Hannah was strong enough to face whatever lay ahead, that she had the love and support of her family to guide her through. And as I looked into my daughter's eyes, I saw a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the bright future that awaited her. A future free from pain and betrayal, filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Just when I thought the worst was behind us, Elaine showed up at my doorstep, her face a mask of fury and desperation. I hadn't seen her since the truth about Peter's affair had come to light, and I knew that her sudden appearance could only mean trouble. We need to talk, Nora, she said, pushing past me and into the living room. This family is falling apart, and we need to put this behind us. I followed her inside, my guard up and my resolve firm. And how do you propose we do that, Elaine? Your son has caused immeasurable pain to my daughter and her children. There's no easy fix for that. Elaine whirled around, her eyes narrowing. Don't you dare put all the blame on Peter. Hannah played a role in this mess, too. If she had been a better wife, none of this would have happened. I felt my blood boil at her words, the same twisted logic she had been using for months to justify Peter's actions. How dare you, Elaine? Hannah has done nothing but love and support your son, even when he didn't deserve it. She is not to blame for his choices. Elaine scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Oh, please. Hannah has always been weak, always playing the victim. It's time she took responsibility for her own failings. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Hannah emerged from the kitchen, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination I had never seen before. Enough, Elaine, she said, her voice steady and strong. I am done letting you manipulate and control me. I am done letting you make excuses for Peter's behavior. This ends now. Elaine's eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting Hannah's newfound strength. Hannah, be reasonable. We need to think about the family, about the children. Hannah shook her head, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. That's exactly what I'm doing, Elaine. I'm thinking about my children's well-being, about the kind of example I want to set for them. And that example is one of strength, of self-respect, of refusing to accept abuse and betrayal. I watched in awe as Hannah stood tall, her shoulders squared, and her head held high. She was no longer the broken, defeated woman she had been just months before, but a fierce warrior, ready to fight for her happiness and her family. Elaine's face twisted in anger, her manipulative facade crumbling before our eyes. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By tearing this family apart. I stepped forward, placing a protective arm around Hannah's shoulders. No, Elaine, you tore this family apart the moment you chose to enable and defend Peter's actions. You have no one to blame but yourself. Elaine's eyes darted between us, desperation and fury warring in her gaze. But as she looked at Hannah, at the unwavering strength and determination in her eyes, she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, she spat, turning on her heel and storming towards the door. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. As the door slammed behind her, I turned to Hannah, my heart swelling with pride and love. I am so proud of you, sweetheart. You stood up for yourself, for your children. You showed her that she no longer has any power over you. Hannah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom, without your love and support. You gave me the strength to keep fighting, even when I thought I had nothing left. I pulled her into a tight embrace, my own tears falling freely. That's what mothers do, Hannah. We fight for our children, no matter what. As we held each other close, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, wounds to heal, and trust to rebuild. But I also knew that Hannah was strong enough to face whatever lay ahead, that she had the love and support of her family to guide her through. And as I looked into my daughter's eyes, I saw a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the bright future that awaited her, a future free from pain and betrayal, filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Months had passed since Hannah's confrontation with Elaine, and life had slowly begun to settle into a new normal. With the help of Diane and me, Hannah had found a cozy new home for herself, Emily and Jason, far away from the painful memories of her old life with Peter. As I pulled up to Hannah's new house, I couldn't help but smile at the sight of Emily and Jason playing in the front yard, their laughter ringing out like music in the warm summer air. Hannah stood on the porch, watching them with a contented smile on her face, and I felt my heart swell with pride and love. "Grandma?" Emily and Jason shouted as I stepped out of the car, running to greet me with open arms. I scooped them up in a big hug, planting kisses on their cheeks. "Oh, how I've missed you two. Look at how big you've gotten." Hannah walked over to join us, her smile widening as she watched our joyful reunion. "They've been asking about you all week, Mom. They couldn't wait for your visit." I wrapped an arm around Hannah's shoulders, giving her a squeeze. "And I couldn't wait to see all of you. This new place looks wonderful, sweetheart. You've done an amazing job making it a home." As we walked inside, I marveled at the warmth and love that seemed to radiate from every corner of the house. Family photos lined the walls, and the air was filled with the delicious aroma of Hannah's cooking. We settled around the dinner table, passing dishes and sharing stories, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of deep contentment wash over me. This was what family was all about: love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds that tied us together. As the evening wore on, Hannah put the children to bed and joined Diane and me in the living room, a peaceful smile on her face. "I never thought I could feel this happy again," she said softly. "After everything that happened with Peter and Elaine, I wasn't sure I'd ever find my way back to a place of joy and stability." Diane reached over and took Hannah's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "But you did, sweetheart. You found your strength, your resilience. You fought for your happiness, and look at where it's brought you." I nodded, my own eyes filling with tears. "Diane is right, Hannah. You've come so far, and I am so incredibly proud of you. You've shown your children what it means to be brave, to stand up for yourself and your happiness." Hannah smiled, her own tears spilling over. "I couldn't have done it without you both. Your love and support have meant everything to me." I don't know where I'd be without my family. As we sat there, basking in the warmth and love of our little family, I couldn't help but think back on the journey that had brought us to this moment. It had been a road filled with pain and heartache, with betrayal and loss. But through it all, we had held on to each other, drawing strength from the unbreakable bonds of family. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the peaceful silence. Hannah frowned as she glanced at the caller ID, her face growing pale. "It's Elaine," she said softly. I felt a flicker of anger and protectiveness surge through me, but Hannah just shook her head, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You know what? I don't need to answer that. I don't owe her anything." With a decisive click, she silenced the phone and turned back to us, her eyes shining with a newfound strength and peace. "This is our fresh start, kids. We're going to be just fine." As I looked around at the faces of my loved ones, I knew that Hannah was right. We had each other, and that was all that mattered. The bonds of family had proven unbreakable, and together we could weather any storm that came our way. And as we sat there laughing and talking late into the night, I felt a sense of deep gratitude wash over me. We had emerged from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. And I knew, without a doubt, that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family.